What is going on? Welcome back to the Jiu-Jitsu Outlet Podcast. My name is Paul Tokizolu. We've got a lot of new subscribers to the show. Podcast has been taking off a lot lately, especially on the YouTubes. So I wanted to take a moment and just kind of rehash some of the biggest takeaways that I've had from doing this podcast, all about how Jiu-Jitsu helps your mental health and your life off the mats. So in this video, I'm going to outline the top things that I see people taking away from Jiu-Jitsu and exactly how it helps from a scientific perspective. So this happens a lot when you're training. You get done with the training session and you just feel absolutely outstanding, and you feel like, man, there's this great surge of energy that happens in your body and you get this sort of clarity. But what is actually happening here? Well, if you listen to this podcast, if you go back to some of our previous episodes, you will see I'll put all the links down below. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on the podcast feed, just check the show notes. The number one way that Jiu-Jitsu helps your mental health is it stimulates all of the neurotransmitters inside of your brain. This is something we talked about in a lot of detail on the podcast with Muhsin Corbbrey. I'll have it pop up somewhere here in the cards if you want to watch that. If you haven't listened to those episodes, Muhsin is a fourth-year doctoral student, and he's also a black belt in Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a crew in Muay Thai. He's a professional MMA fighter, and he's also a coach. So he's someone who has a lot of anecdotal experience, and he's also gone deep on the research behind this. What he explained to us is that there is nothing that science is finding that helps your brain more than hard, strenuous physical exercise, like the physical exercise that you get here on the jiu-jitsu mats. And it does a lot more for you than just going for a jog or maybe just lifting a couple weights at the gym. There's something that happens to your brain when you induce some extreme stress from a physical perspective. It's almost as if we grew up for millions of years, billions of years, however long it was, fighting the elements, battling the saber-toothed tiger, maybe training to fight the other tribe who was trying to take our food in the cave, or whatever was going down back in the prehistoric era. It seems that it required human beings to be quite physically capable, and there's something that evolved inside of our bodies to promote that and to stimulate that. And whenever we are exposing ourselves to really hard things from a physical perspective, it stimulates all sorts of healthy chemicals within your brain. Specifically, what it does is it helps stimulate the production of dopamine in your brain. So a lot of times you might find if you're on the jiu-jitsu mats and let's say you get a submission for the very first time, maybe you've been training for 6 months or something like that, and finally you're able to pull off one of those submissions that you've been working on and learning, and maybe you've been getting hit with submissions like crazy up to this time, and then you get that first submission. For a lot of people, they get this huge like euphoria that comes over them, and what they're really experiencing is a gigantic rush of dopamine into your body. And dopamine is a very important chemical. It's what keeps us motivated. It's what keeps us going. It's what keeps us like wanting to keep achieving things. It happens whenever you kind of overcome some sort of adversity in your life, or if you achieve some sort of a goal. And whenever you achieve a goal like a submission, where you're literally your body registers it as you're able to, defend yourself out in the wild. You're able to fend off that attacker. You're able to defend the tribe or your family or whatever. This is all being processed by your body at a biological evolutionary level. At the cellular level, your body feels this and it releases dopamine. What science is finding, again, go back to my conversation with Muhsin if you want to see all the research behind this, because I have it documented over there. But what science is finding is that there is a causal link between the production of dopamine and the production of testosterone, especially in men. So as men achieve goals, as men start to unlock more dopamine, there is a simultaneous boost in testosterone that also happens. So if you are low on testosterone, you're going to be experiencing an unhealthy immune system. You're going to have low energy. You're not going to feel very happy. You're going to be feeling sad all the time without any explanation. And you're not going to have this feeling of contentment. Testosterone is extremely important for men beyond just getting jacked and just having more muscle mass. That's one part of it, but it also influences your happiness levels, your energy levels, your ability to fight off infection. Your weight will be affected by how your testosterone levels are. So all of these things are correlated with your dopamine production. So if your dopamine is not being produced, if that is somehow hindered, or if it's not being stimulated enough, then your testosterone levels are going to be suffering. And that's what we see happening in the Western world, like an epidemic. We see an epidemic of low testosterone right now in males, which is very, very bad. This is something that we need to be very aware of, the link between dopamine and testosterone. But that is not all. Your brain also stimulates the production of norepinephrine, serotonin, and acetylcholine. So these are all other chemicals that your brain produces to kind of keep you going, keep you happy. Serotonin especially is known kind of as the happiness molecule. And what Muhsin and I discussed on our last interview together is that science is finding that strenuous exercise, getting your body into that state, is actually more beneficial for you than SSRIs. So your body is already hardwired to produce these chemicals that doctors are trying to give us medication to stimulate. So a lot of these doctors are just pill pushers that are just trained to associate your symptoms with a pill that they're meant to prescribe to you. And that's just all that these doctors are doing a lot of times, is they're trained to bring you into the office, to run a basic scan on you and assess like, oh, he's anxious, or oh, he's depressed, or oh, she might be dealing with bipolar or whatever. And then they've got a pill that correlates with that. And that's all that they're trained to do. However, what the actual researchers are finding is that if you just expose your body to physical exercise on a regular daily basis, and if you're putting your body into that stressful state where, again, you're not mentally stressed necessarily, but your body is physically stressed. So you're exposing it to a stimulus from the outside world, whether that be jiu-jitsu or a CrossFit workout or something that's really intense, maybe going and hitting some hill sprints. These are all things that will produce that sort of effect. But here's the thing. Jiu-Jitsu also produces oxytocin. So this is a very important chemical that your body needs for optimal health. And oxytocin is what happens whenever there is a physical contact, a skin-on-skin contact between human beings. You can also get this, I found oddly enough, you can also get this through connecting with animals. So if you give your dog a big hug for more than a minute, you both start to produce oxytocin. And it's kind of a feel-good chemical that helps your body to heal and repair and experience this feeling of like community and having this bond. It's actually a chemical that gets produced in your body. Not experiencing oxytocin can result in depression and a feeling of kind of a distance from the tribe, a distance from community. So a lot of times you hear people on this podcast talking about how community is one of the most important benefits that they get from training.
The community aspect is really important, and it's not just about like having friends per se, because you can kind of have friends a lot of places. I think that when we're rolling around with each other and trying to kill each other and doing all this stuff, there's a little bit more of an intimate bond, and I think that like I wasn't always taught how to be so intimate with people, you know what I mean, and be so physical and stuff like that. And I don't think it was like a major feature in my family, or maybe I just avoided it growing up for whatever reason. You know, being able to like kind of roughhouse with your friends like that was a way that I connected a lot with people.
And what they're really talking about there is a feeling of oxytocin, that they literally walk away from the session feeling that community bond through the production of oxytocin. So this is one of the reasons why I say that martial arts training is the best way to improve your mental health beyond something like weightlifting or CrossFit or going for a hard run, because there's so many other benefits that happen besides just the usual stuff you get with a workout. Another thing that happens whenever your body is exposed to a really physical, stressful activity like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai is it stimulates your vagus nerve. So if you've never heard of the vagus nerve before, it's a part of your nervous system that literally connects together all of the different organs in your body. This is something that Sterling Cooley came on the show to talk about. He's an expert in working with the vagus nerve. He helps people repair their vagus nerve if they've had damage to it. And he broke down exactly how important this is. So this is an essential part of your body's ability to process information, to operate, to fend off illness. In fact, they're finding a link between a damaged vagus nerve and having different mental health disorders, in quotation marks, or different mental health issues like suffering from autism, which is what I've been diagnosed with, or if you're suffering from intense depression or bipolar or any of these sort of more I guess, extreme mental health conditions where it's having a really serious impact on your life. What researchers are finding is a correlation. Again, correlation doesn't necessarily prove causation, but they're finding a correlation between the vagus nerve health and all of these other issues, including obesity is another one. So people who have a damaged vagus nerve oftentimes struggle with weight control and things like this. So there's all sorts of ways to stimulate your vagus nerve and get it into a healthy state where it's processing and it's working properly and it's helping your body to operate and literally helping every single organ in your body basically through having a healthy production. Some of the ways to stimulate it is the sauna or taking a cold plunge or, again, physical exercise, hard, strenuous work like going for sprints, doing jiu-jitsu, hitting an MMA session, or something of that variety. So again, when you put your body in that extreme physical state, it stimulates a vagus nerve response. The vagus nerve is almost like your body's processing system that sometimes needs a reason to activate. If you're just sitting around all day watching TV or playing video games, your vagus nerve isn't going to be in an active state because there's no reason to activate it. But then whenever you do activate it, it helps everything in your body function better. If you want to learn more about that, go listen to my interview with Sterling Cooley. I'll put the little tag thing somewhere around here on this video. So click that if you want to learn more about the vagus nerve. The next thing that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu helps you with from a mental health perspective is confidence. So this is really associated with everything that we just talked about. Like everything I just said is kind of the scientific reason for why someone might feel more confident, but that is a lot of times the result. So after someone starts training, after a couple of months go by, they start to feel this confidence like they've never felt before. And a lot of it goes back to just knowing how to defend yourself, feeling capable. And I think a lot of it has to do with just realizing that you're not made out of glass. That if you get beat up in the training room, you can still come back and you can still have a good round the next time. Like if you go against someone who's really experienced and they handle you and beat you up and you get tapped out 10 times in the round, you can still come back and you can still have a great round going with someone who's maybe at your experience level. And just realizing that is a huge thing that kind of awakens something in people and makes them feel like, oh wow, I can take a fall, or I can get elbowed in the face accidentally and it's not a big deal, or whatever. If you're doing a little bit of MMA training or some fight simulation where you get punched in the face a couple times, you realize like, man, I can take a punch. It's not that big of a deal. It definitely hurts. It doesn't feel good, but you're not made out of glass. They talk about this in the Fight Club movie, for example, that this was one of the things that he talks about in Fight Club, where he starts to realize that he is not made out of glass and he gets this addiction to fighting other people because he realizes that he can take a beating and he can still come back. And I think that that's a big part of the confidence that we get from martial arts training. If you are someone who believes in God, or if you believe in some sort of a spiritual reality of life, if you believe in a ever-expanding universe that is infinitely alive, for example, then it would be really hard not to say that martial arts aren't some sort of a tool to almost bridge the gap between those things. It's almost as if some sort of a higher hive mind intelligence, some sort of a divine creator gave us these things as tools to remain healthy and experience all of the health benefits that came from a really difficult life for millions of years. And now we can still practice those same arts here in our more modernized world where we don't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers or whatever, and we can still get those same benefits. And a lot of times what I see happening in the world, and maybe you do as well, is there's this degradation of health and there's this overall lack of health that seems to be invading especially the American people. It's happening all over the world, but especially here in America, and it goes back to our food not being very good, and also just having all the activities that kids and people are encouraged to do are activities most of the time that do the opposite of what strenuous training does. If you want to make a healthy change in your life and you want to experience all of these benefits that I've just described, start training in a combat martial art. You will watch your whole life change if you commit to the training. And that is the most important part.